this tutorial is how to make an inverse chevron friendship bracelet. They come out looking exactly like any other friendship bracelet would. The only difference is that you're kind of weaving them inside out, or backwards, I guess. I don't really like how the strings kind of get bunched up in the middle, but some people actually like this method better. They think that their knots turn out better on their chevron friendship bracelets. So try it out and see what you think. To get started, you'll need your ruler, some scissors, and either embroidery floss or craft thread. For this one I'm using craft thread. You'll want to cut all of your embroidery floss to about 65 inches. I'm actually going to do 70 inches on this one because while I'm going to do a long loop at the beginning of this, eventually I'm going to cut it and make it into a braid, but I'll do that at the end when it's easiest. So initially I will be cutting 70 inches. Double them over, and then find the middle, and like I said, instead of doing a loop and a braid, I'm going to do a braid eventually. So I'm just going to make a really long loop for now, and at the end I'll turn that into a braid. Just like that. And clip it under my clipboard. So I put these numbers up here just to make it easier for me to explain to you. And the first thing you'll want to do is lay out your strings so that they're a mirror image of each other. I've put the red on the outside, then the purple, and the pink in the middle. And if you're watching this, you've probably already done the regular chevron. So this is just kind of working backwards on that. The way you start it is I'm holding my right string as the base string, and then I'm tying on a forward knot. Hopefully you remember what that is. It's a forward knot onto that string. So this is the string that I tied with, and once I tie that first center knot, the strings are going to switch place. It's always going to do that way after you tie the center knot. So now that these strings have switched places, I was tying on with this string right here. So I'm just going to continue, and I did a forward knot. I'm going to continue doing forward knots, tying on to the next string, working from left to right. And then I'll tie on to the number 3 string here. Again, that's a forward knot. And each time you tie a knot, your strings will switch place. So now that string that was my number 1 string has switched over and is now the number 3 string. And my new number 1 string is this purple one. So we have to do the exact same thing on the opposite side, and since we did forward knots on this side, we're going to do backward knots on this side. So I will be taking, and make sure you keep your strings in order so that your colors match up, otherwise everything will get tangled. So I tied the pink string over the purple string on this side. So now, since I've already got my center knot done, I'm going to be tying backward knots with this pink string onto the purple string. There's one backward knot, and then on to the next string. This is the base string now, and the pink one is the one I'm tying on with. And now my 2 pink strings are the number 3 strings, the red ones are the number 2 strings, and my purple ones are now the new number 1 strings. So I'm just going to keep doing the exact same thing. Now I'm going to take each of my number 1 strings, the one on the right is going to be my base string, and the one on the left I'm going to be tying on with. So make sure again that you're holding the base string tight. And when you pull your forward knots up and to the right. That will keep them nice and tight and everything moving in the correct direction. So since my string switched place, this was the base string, and I tied on with this string, so now they've flip-flopped and switched places. I'm going to keep tying on with the exact same string and keep doing forward knots, working from left to right, and pulling that string up and to the right. Now on the left, this purple string that was the one string on the left side is going to be the new string I'm tying on with, and I'm going to be making backward knots. So remember how that works, it's the backwards 4, and it goes through that loop there, and you'll be pulling it up and to the left, because your forward knots get pulled up and to the right, and your backward knots get pulled up and to the left. Just like that. And keep working from right to left with your backwards knots. So there are your first couple of rows. And you can almost see that point starting to form. The beginning of your bracelet always looks a little bit funky with these. And we'll just keep working from the center to the outside. So on the right side, we're doing forward knots, going from left to right, and on the left side, we're doing backward knots, going from right to left. So again, the center, use the right string as the base string, holding it firm, and tie on with the left string. Make sure you pull those forward knots up and to the right, the string switch place, and just continue on doing the exact same thing. Now the one thing I really don't like about doing the inverse chevron is that you can't quite see what's going on in the middle until you've gone a few rows past it. So you can see how everything is kind of just getting bunched up in the center there, and you have to flatten it out to even see what you're doing. That's not my favorite thing, especially from my angle, because I'm kind of looking at it. I guess it looks like that to me. So not my favorite. I'm actually not really sure why anybody would want to do an inverse chevron, but you asked, so here it is. And it's really not that hard. I think they look pretty good. Usually I don't like using craft thread for my friendship bracelets, but for some reason the craft thread looks pretty good when you use the inverse chevron. I'm not really sure why that happens. Maybe someday I'll have an answer. One thing I did want to show you, even though it's not quite so pretty, is exactly what my hands are doing when I'm starting a new row. So I've got my base string in this hand, and I'm tying on with this string. So I do the first part of my forward knot, pull up into the right, second part of the forward knot, and then I just pull it on over and I keep tying. I never let go of that string. And this helps keep the strings from getting kind of mixed up and jumbled and that sort of thing. And another thing I really don't like about doing this inverse chevron is that everything ends up so close together in here. So you kind of have to untangle everything whenever you start over a new row, which really isn't my favorite. But I think the inverse chevron actually might work a little bit better for craft thread than it does for embroidery floss. So here, like I said, starting a new one, doing my forward knot, and since the string switch places, I just kind of keep it in this hand and then continue doing my forward knots. Start on this side, even though it's all tangled. And you can see sometimes things get looped up where they're not supposed to be because everything's so close in the center. that's that, and just keep going. Once your bracelet's long enough to wrap completely around your wrist, unclip it from your clipboard and tie a knot in the end with your work. Then clip it back into your clipboard and divide the strings into 3 groups and braid them. And once your braid is long enough, tie a knot in the end. And I made a long loop on this one because I planned on putting a braid in this end too. So I'm just going to cut the very end of it, clip it back in, and braid this end. And once you've completed that braid, tie that one off as well. And if you don't want to finish your bracelet with 2 braids, you can also check out my other video on how to attach different ends to your friendship bracelets. I just like to finish off the tassels so they're nice and tidy. And as you can see, it comes out looking pretty much exactly like your regular chevron bracelet.